The great crystal hall of Chiron Prime sparkled like 1,000 diamonds, but Lyris felt like a shadow in paradise. Her weak purple glow flickered nervously as she stood before the council, watching the other Chirons shine with perfect, brilliant light. Their bodies glowed with colors so bright they could blind a star, while her own light was barely stronger than a dying candle. The massive chamber was carved from pure crystal that sang with power. Every surface pulsed with waves of rainbow light, matching the heartbeat of her people. But Lyris didn't match anything. She never had. Her light was broken, scattered, wrong. Where others shone smooth and steady, she flickered like a broken lamp. The elder chairperson stood tall as a mountain, his silver blue light flowing across his perfect features like liquid metal. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. Through silk. Lyris of the 5th Division, he said, each word dripping with disgust. Your light is weak. Your work means nothing. You are a stain on everything pure about Chiron. Lyris felt her hands shake. Deep in her bag, she touched the small crystal shard she had carved. It wasn't perfect like everything else on Chiron Prime, but it was hers. She had spent months working on it, pouring her heart into every tiny detail. To her, it was beautiful. To them, it was just another failure. Does beauty really define everything about worth? She asked, her voice trembling but loud enough for everyone to hear. The question hung in the air like poison. The other Chirons' lights flickered with shock. No one questioned the council, ever. Beauty is harmony, the elder chairperson replied, his voice colder than space. Harmony keeps us alive. You are chaos, Lyris. You have always been chaos. The word harmony hit her like a punch to the chest. She had heard it her whole life. As a child, she had spent endless hours trying to make her light smooth and pretty like the others. She had practiced until her body ached, copying their movements, their patterns, their perfect glow. But her light stayed jagged and wild, showing her emotions like an open book. It was her curse. Can't you see she tries? A new voice rang out, sharp and angry. Lyris turned to see Chiron, her oldest friend, his orange light blazing with fury. His glow was so bright, it made the council's steady light look dim. Lyris has given everything to this world, Chiron continued, his voice shaking with rage. She has worth. She matters. The elder chairperson raised one hand, and Chiron's light dimmed like someone had turned down a switch. The power of authority crushed his rebellion instantly. Feelings don't change facts, the elder said, and rebellion doesn't change truth. She must go. The sentinels moved forward like walking shadows. Their tall forms were covered in masks of pure light, but there was no warmth in that glow. No kindness, no mercy. As they reached for her, Lyris looked at Chiron one last time. His face was twisted with pain, and she saw tears in his glowing eyes. The departure gate stood at the very edge of Chiron Prime, where their world met the endless darkness of space. It was a swirling pool of broken light, spinning like a tornado made of shattered rainbows. Lyris had never been this close to it before. The air around it hummed with dangerous energy, a sound that was both beautiful and terrifying. Her bare feet pressed against the cold, smooth floor. The crystal shard in her bag felt heavier than a mountain, but she held on to it anyway. It was imperfect, just like her. It was the only thing that was truly hers. You can take your failure with you, the elder chairperson said, his words like ice. But it won't change what you are. Earth is a messy, chaotic place. Maybe you'll fit in better with their disorder. Lyris turned her glowing purple eyes to him. Her voice was quiet but strong as steel. You can throw me away, but your judgment will never kill my soul. With those words, She stepped into the gate. The trip to Earth felt like being torn apart and put back together. The spinning light threw her out like garbage, and she crashed into a narrow alley that smelled of garbage and rain. The hard pavement scraped her purple skin, and her dim light flickered weakly in the darkness. Everything was wrong. The air was thick and humid, pressing against her like a wet blanket. Strange noises attacked her ears from every direction. Shouting, mechanical. Roars, the distant hum of an alien world that never slept. She pulled herself up, her whole body aching from the crash. Her bag was still with her, the crystal shard inside somehow unbroken. She wasn't alone for long. 2 humans appeared at the mouth of the alley, their clothes torn and dirty, their eyes hard as stones. They stopped dead when they saw her, their mouths hanging open in shock. "Holy hell, what is that thing?" one of them whispered. The other man stepped closer, squinting at her faint glow. "Ugly," he spat like the word tasted bad. "Looks useless too." Lyris pulled back against the wall, her light dimming even more. The men laughed as they walked away, their cruel voices echoing in the alley. She slumped down, curling into herself, like a wounded animal. The sting of rejection felt exactly the same as it had on Chiron Prime. Hours crawled by like wounded creatures. Lyris was too tired to move, too hurt to think. Then another figure entered the alley. At first she barely noticed him through her exhaustion, but his voice, low and calm, cut through the fog in her mind. "Hey, are you okay?" She tensed, her dim light sparking weakly in response. The man knelt a few feet away, his hands open and empty where she could see them. His face was smudged with paint, and his wild hair-framed eyes filled with careful curiosity. "I won't hurt you," he said, his voice soft but steady. "You're not from around here, are you?" Lyris stared at him, her translator implant working hard to understand his speech. He moved closer slowly, like someone approaching a scared animal. But his eyes weren't filled with fear or disgust. They held something much more dangerous, real concern. "My name's Alex," he said. "I don't know what you are, but you look like you need help." Lyris hesitated. The crystal shard in her bag felt heavier than ever. She thought about running, but her body was too weak. Gathering what little strength she had left, she nodded, her light flaring briefly in response. Alex smiled, a small, warm expression that felt strange but oddly comforting. "Come on," he said, offering his hand. "Let's get you somewhere safe." Lyris hesitated for only a moment before placing her shaking fingers in his. His grip was firm but gentle, anchoring her in a way she hadn't felt in years. As they walked toward the glowing city streets, Lyris looked back at the dark alley where she had fallen. She didn't know what waited for her, but for the first time since her exile, hope flickered faintly in her chest. The city spread out around them like a maze made of steel and neon. Hellion hummed with life, its streets glowing in patches of bright advertisements and shadowed alleys. Lyris moved carefully beside Alex, her faint glow flickering against the harsh lights of the human world. She stayed quiet, taking in the symphony of voices, engines, and the occasional wail of a distant siren. It was overwhelming, a chaotic orchestra, so different from the precise harmony of Chiron Prime. Every sound seemed to fight with every other sound, creating a mess that somehow worked. Alex glanced at her, his eyebrows pulling together with concern. "You okay? You're really quiet." Lyris blinked, her translator implant working to understand his words. "I am not used to this," she replied, her voice filled with both wonder and discomfort. He tilted his head slightly. "Not used to what?" "The noise." All of this, she said, gesturing with a delicate hand toward the tangled streets. It feels alive but broken at the same time. Alex chuckled, but there was something bitter underneath the sound. That's Halion for you. Alive, broken, and full of surprises. His tone was light, but Lyris heard the weariness hidden beneath his easy manner. He looked like someone who had been hurt before, someone who didn't trust easily. And yet here he was, leading her, a stranger, an alien, through the streets like it was the most natural thing in the world. They reached his building, a worn structure squeezed between two towering complexes. The peeling paint and creaking. Stairwell spoke of better days long past. Alex opened the door to his apartment with a quiet "Here we are," stepping aside to let her enter first. Lyris stopped at the doorway, her glowing skin faintly lighting up the space. The room was cluttered, but somehow welcoming. Paintings leaned against every wall, their bright colors forming a rainbow of human expression. Canvases hung from nails at odd angles, some showing sprawling city scenes, others surreal mixtures of light and shadow. The air smelled of paint, and something earthy, like rain-soaked wood. "It's not much, but it's home," Alex said, his voice touched with embarrassment. Lyra stepped inside, her eyes drifting across the artwork. "These ... you created them." He nodded, setting down his bag and rubbing the back of his neck. "Yeah, well, I try to. Most people around here don't exactly see the value in art." She tilted her head, her purple skin catching the faint light of the room. "They are alive." Alex looked at her, surprised. "Alive?" Lyris pointed toward a painting of a stormy seascape, the waves rolling with raw energy. "They move. They breathe. I can feel them." His lips curved into a smile, the first genuine one she had seen from him. "You're not bad at this whole compliment thing." Lyris didn't fully understand the humor in his tone, but something in his expression made her relax. For a moment, she let go of the tension that had been wrapped around her chest like chains. As the hours passed, Alex brought her a blanket and an old mug of tea. His movements were careful and thoughtful. Lyris watched him, fascinated by the mix of kindness and caution he showed. It was as if he had been hurt before, but chose to offer fragile trust anyway. "Why did you help me?" she asked suddenly. Alex paused, his hands wrapped around his own mug. "I've been where you are," he said quietly. "Maybe not exactly, but I know what it feels like to have the world turn its back on you." Lyris leaned forward slightly. "And yet you found me." "Call it a bad habit," he said with a shrug. "I can't stand seeing someone left out in the cold." She studied him for a long moment, searching his amber eyes for hidden motives. She found none. Instead, she saw a flicker of something she hadn't seen in a long time. Honesty. As night fell, Alex set up a makeshift bed for her in the corner of the room. The faint hum of the city buzzed through the window, a distant reminder of the chaos outside. Lyris lay down, clutching her bag tightly, the crystal shard inside pressed against her ribs, a small but solid weight. "What's in there?" Alex asked, nodding toward the bag as he settled into an old armchair. Lyris hesitated. She wasn't sure why she felt the need to protect the shard's meaning, but something about it felt too personal to share just yet. "A piece of my past," she said finally. Alex raised an eyebrow but didn't push for more. "Well, whatever it is, you can keep it safe here." His words carried a weight that surprised her. Lyris had been taught to distrust softness, to see vulnerability as weakness. Yet here, in this strange, cluttered space, she felt a fragile sense of safety. Later that night, a sudden crash shattered the stillness. Lyris sat up fast, her glow flaring with instinct. Alex was already on his feet, moving toward the window. "Damn neighbors," he muttered, looking through the glass. Lyris joined him, her eyes scanning the street below. A small group of people stood near a storefront, their voices raised in argument. One of them turned, catching sight of the faint glow coming from the apartment window. "Get down," Alex said sharply, pulling her away from the window. "What is it?" Lyris asked, her voice low. "People around here don't always like differences," he said grimly. "Especially not ones that glow." Lyris's chest tightened. She had thought Earth might let her hide, but the hostility she had faced so far told a different story. By the time the noise died down, Alex had returned to his armchair, worry etched on his face. "We'll need to be careful," he said. "Hellion might look big, but word gets around fast." Lyris nodded, her mind racing. She had run from one world of judgment only to land in another. Yet, as she looked at Alex, she realized she wasn't completely alone. "Thank you," she said softly. He looked at her, his expression softening. "Get some rest, Lyris. Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do next." As she lay back down, the crystal shard pressed against her side once more. It was a reminder of her exile, but also a tiny spark of hope. For the first time in years, she felt the faintest possibility that she might build a new life out of the chaos around her. Morning broke over Halion City in broken streaks of gold, filtering through the smudged glass of Alex's studio. The sunlight mixed with the faint purple glow of Lyris's skin as she woke on the makeshift bed. Her violet fingers brushed the edges of the blanket Alex had given her, its rough texture foreign but comforting. She sat up slowly, her bag still clutched against her chest like a lifeline. Alex stood near the window, his gaze fixed on the busy street below. Steam from his coffee curled upward, briefly catching the light. He didn't turn when he spoke, his voice breaking the silence. "You're a quiet one. Sleep, okay?" It was strange, Lyris admitted, her voice uncertain but clear, yet peaceful. "Good." Alex finally looked over his shoulder, offering a small smile. "Peace is hard to find in a place like this." Lyris tilted her head, watching him. His amber eyes, framed by wild curls, carried a heaviness that didn't match his casual manner. She sensed something beneath his words, an unease he wasn't sharing. "You carry pain," she said, her tone more statement than question. Alex blinked, caught off guard. "I guess you could say that. Don't we all?" She looked at him carefully. "Perhaps. But yours feels deeper." He didn't answer, instead turning back to his coffee. The silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable but filled with unspoken truths. Later, as the day found its rhythm, Alex invited Lyris to explore the studio. His space was a beautiful mess. Shelves cluttered with jars of paintbrushes, sculptures in different stages of completion, and canvases leaning against walls. Colors exploded across the room in wild strokes and patterns, an intentional chaos that matched its creator's restless mind. "Feel free to look around," Alex said, gesturing broadly. "Might give you a better sense of what I do. Or try to do anyway." Lyris moved carefully, her fingers brushing the rough textures of unfinished sculptures and the smooth edges of canvases. One painting caught her attention, a swirling image of a storm, its dark colors clashing violently. She touched the edge of the frame, her glow growing slightly brighter. "This one. It feels like anger," she said. Alex turned, surprised. "Yeah, that's exactly what it is. How did you know?" She studied the piece, her voice thoughtful. "The strokes are wild. The colors fight each other. It reminds me of what I carried on Sheeran Prime." "What you carried?" he asked, stepping closer. "The rejection. The shame." She paused, her fingers lingering on the painting. I tried to hide my light, to force it into their perfect shape. But it always broke free. They saw that as a flaw. Alex leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. Maybe it wasn't a flaw. Maybe it was just ... you. Arms seems to me like they couldn't handle something different. Their lost Luz glanced at him, her lips curving into the faintest smile. You speak as though you understand, he shrugged. Maybe I do. People around Herodon always appreciate different. Either after a moment, Alex picked up a chisel and handed it to her. Want to try something? Luz hesitated, her fingers closing around the tool. I do not know your methods good, he said. That means you won't be limited by them. He led her to a block of unshaped stone sitting at top a worn pedestal. This one's all yours, no rules, no judgment. Just create. She stood in silence for a moment, staring at the stone, then as though guided by instinct, she began to carve. Her movements were tentative at first, but soon they grew more confident. The patterns she etched weren't symmetrical or precise, they were fluid, organic. Alive, her bioluminescence flared softly, illuminating the groovish carved. Alex watched his brow furrowing in fascination. You've got a gift, he said almost to himself. When Liz finally stepped back, the stone had transformed. Its surface was covered in intricate patterns that shimmered under her glow, forming a chaotic, yet mesmerizing design. Alex let out a low whistle. That's incredible. You just did that like off the top of your head. It felt natural, she said simply, as though it was already within the stone, waiting to be revealed. You ever think about doing this back home? He asked, her glow dimmed slightly. It would not have mattered. They would not have seen its value. Well, I do, Alex said firmly. And I'm guessing I'm not the only one. The day continued with bursts of creativity. I'll set up a blank canvas for Luz, handing her a palette of paints. Your turn, he said. Let's see what you Kando. Luz hesitated, studying the array of colors on Chiron Prime. Art was sterilely defined by rules and symmetry here. It felt boundless, unpredictable. She dipped a brush into a pool of vibrant blue and began to paint. Her strokes mirrored her bioluminescence, blending the paint and her light into a living tapestry. When she finished, Alex stepped back to take it in. The canvas seemed to pulse with energy, a swirling dance of color and glow. I don't even have words for this, he said, his voice tinged with awe. Lyra sat down the brush, her chest rising and falling with exhilaration. It feels freeing, she said softly, to create without fear. Then you've already beaten them, Alex said. Their moment of peace was interrupted by a sudden knock at the door. Alex stiffened, his easygoing demeanor replaced by cautious tension. He opened the door to reveal Detective Rowan, her sharp features and piercing gaze instantly commanding attention. Evening, she said, her tone clipped. Her eyes flipped past Alex, Tolius narrowing slightly. I've been hearing about some unusual activity in this area. Alex's jaw tightened. Unusual how? Rowan's gaze lingered on Luz. Reports of strange lights. Anomalies, they called it. You wouldn't know anything about. Would you know law against being different? Alex said, Evan Linnet, yet Rowan replied, her voice unreadable. But you should be careful. Not everyone's as open-minded as I am. A Shetton to leave. Rowan paused in the doorway. If anyone asks, I wasn't here. Fedor clicked shut, leaving a heavy silence. In its wake, Luz turned to Alex, her glow flickering. Am I in danger? Webeth might be, he said, his voice quiet but resolute. But I'm not letting anything happen to you. Lyris held his gaze, her light steadying for the first time in years. She felt not just safe but determined. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she wouldn't face them alone. The weight of Detective Rowan's warning lingered in the studio. Like smoke, thick and oppressive. Lyra sat on the edge of her makeshift bed, clutching her crystal shard. Its cool surface anchored her, though it couldn't erase the unease curling in her chest. Alex paced across the studio, his movement sharp and restless. His usual calm had fractured, replaced by an energy that buzzed like Statch, didn't just stumble. In here, Alex muttered, someone's watching. Who? Luz asked, her voice quiet but steady. Could be anyone, Alex replied, dragging a hand through his hair-copped civilians. Hell, even neighbors. People here love to stick their noses where they don't belong. Luz Glow flickered faintly. You are afraid? Alex stopped pacing and turned to her, his amber eyes locking with hers. Not for me, for you. They don't care about the truth, all they see is something different. And that's enough to make you a target. She lowered her gaze, her fingers tracing the grooves in the shard. I will not bring harm to you. I don't even think about leaving. Alex said, his voice firm. We're in this together. Lyra hesitated, her bioluminescence dimming. She wanted to believe him, but experience had taught her that trust was fragile on Zuran Prime. No one stood with me. Why would you? Alex saw soften, crouching beside her. Because I know what it feels like to be cast out, to have people decide you're not worth saving. I'm not letting them do that to you. Over the next few days they worked tirelessly in the studio. Alex insisted on keeping Elle's light work contained, worried that event the faintest glow might draw attention. She spent hours carving patterns into stone and experimenting with paint, finding solace in the act of creation. Her artistry became bolder, her movements more assured, as if each stroke defied a judgment she had faced on Sharon Prime. One evening, Alex returned from a trip to a nearby gallery. He tossed a flyer onto the table, its bright lettering proclaiming how's an underground showcase, a celebration of hidden talents. This, he said, pointing to the flyer, is our chance. Our chance for what? Luz asked, her glow pulsing faintly with curiosity. To show them what you can do, Alex replied. The galleries for artists who don't fit the mold. If we can get your work in there, maybe people will see you for who you really are. Lyra stared at him, her bioluminescence dimming slightly. And if they do not, then they're blind. Alex said simply, but I'm betting on the ones who aren't. The weeks leading up to the showcase were a blur of activity. Luz poured herself into her work, creating pieces that seemed to Hume with life. Her bioluminescent patterns became an integral part of her art, casting shifting lights across her sculptures and paintings. Alex worked along inside her, offering encouragement and the occasional critique. One night, as they sat surrounded by half-finished pieces, Alex leaned back in his chair and looked at her. You know, you're kind of amazing. Luz tilted her head, puzzled. Amazing? Yeah. Alex said, gesturing to the room. Look at all this. You came from a place that tried to crush you, and now you're creating things that I don't know feel like they've got souls. Her glow brightened slightly, a faint blush spreading a sea across her cheeks. I do not feel amazing. Well, you are, Alex said, his tone light but sincere. And if those Galer people can't see that, they don't deserve to. The night of the showcase arrived with an air of nervous excitement. Alex helped Luz transport her work to the underground gallery, a hidden space nestled beneath the city's industrial district. The venue buzzed with energy, its walls adorned with unconventional art from all walks of life. Lyra's piece stood out immediately. Her sculptures seemed to breathe, their carved patterns catching the low light and refracting it in mesmerizing ways. Her paintings, alive with color and bioluminescent accents, drew murmurs of awe from the crowd, but not everyone was impressed. A man in a sleek suit stood at the edge of the room, his eyes narrowing as he studied her work. He approached Alex with a calculating expression. This is unusual, he said, his tone dripping with skepticism. It's brilliant, Alex shot back. The man tilted his head. And who is the artist? Alex hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering. She's an immigrant new to the city trying to make her mark. The man's gaze shifted to Luz, his lips pressing into a thin line. I seized the night war on Luz, found herself surrounded by a small group of admirers. They asked questions about her techniques, her inspirations, her life. She answered, cautiously, careful not to reveal too much, but their genuine interest warmed her. For the first time she felt seen, not as an anomaly, but as an artist. Just as she began to relax, a commotion broke out near the intransitive. Rowan stepped into the gallery, her sharp features cutting through the crowd. She spotted Luz instantly, her expression unreadable. Luz's glow flickered with unease as Rowan approached. I told you to be careful, the detective said quietly. I have harmed no one. Luz replied, not yet. Rowan said, but there are people here who don't care about that, people who would use this as an excuse to come after you. Alex stepped in, his voice low and firm. She's not going anywhere. And she's not hiding either. Rowan glanced between them, her eyes narrowing. "You're playing a dangerous game, someone." "Has to," Alex said. Rowan sighed, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "For what it's worth. I hope you're right, but don't say I didn't warn you." As she turned to leave, Luz felt a surge of determination. She looked at Alex, her glow steady and strong. "I will not run," Hesmond faintly. "Good, because I think you're just getting started." That night, as they packed up her work, Luz reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She had been cast out, labeled useless, and left to survive in a world that was not her own. But here in this chaotic city, she had found something she never thought possible. Belling, the shadows of Halion loomed large, but for the first time Luz felt ready to face them together. They would carve light into the darkness. Halion buzzed with restless energy as word of Lies' art continued to ripple throughout the city. Her work had become a point of contention, a radiant beacon of creativity to some, a disruptive anomaly to others. The air outside Alex's studio felt charged, as though the city itself braced for a coming storm. Inside, Elle stood before a half-finished sculpture, her bioluminescence casting soft patterns across a surface. Her hands moved with careful precision, carving grooves that twisted and danced like currents of flight. Each stroke felt like defiance, a silent declaration that her existence would not be erased. Alex leaned against the wall, watching her with a mix of admiration and unease. "It's incredible," he said, breaking the silence, "but it's also a giant middle finger to everyone who wants you gone." Lyris paused, her violet eyes flickering toward him. "Do you think they will stop if I remain silent, if I dim my life light?" He shook his head. "No, but staying quiet is safer." She straightened, her glow brightening slightly. "Safety is a luxury I no longer seek. If I silence myself, they have already won." Alex sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I just don't want you to get hurt." Lyra stepped closer, placing a hand lightly on his arm. "Neither do I, but hiding will not protect me. It will only let them believe they are right." Later that day, a knock echoed through the studio. Alex opened the door, cautiously revealing Detective Rowan. Her sharp gaze swept the room before landing on Liz. "We need to talk," Rowan said, stepping inside her. Tone was clipped, her usual aloof demeanor replaced by something more urgent. "What's going on?" Alex asked, crossing his arms. Rowan exhaled, leaning against the edge of the workbench's chatter about a group planning to disrupt your next exhibition. "They're not just talk either. These people have a connections, resources." Lyris tilted her head, studying Rowan. "Why do you warn us?" Rowan hesitated, her expression flickering with something unspoken. "Because I've seen what happens when things like this spiral out of control. Innocent people get hurt, and whatever else. You don't deserve what's coming." Alex frowned. "So what are you supposed to do? Cancel everything? Hide?" "No," Rowan said firmly. "You go ahead with it, but be prepared. These people won't play fair." Luz nodded, her glow steady. "We will face them." Rowan straightened, her lips pressing into a thin line. "Just don't make me regret sticking my neck out for you." As she left, Alex turned to Liz, his jaw tight. "She's right, we need Applin. We have one." Luz said simply. "We create the days leading up to the exhibition." What a blur of activity. Luz and Alex worked late into the night, transforming the studio into a hive of creativity. Her sculptures grew more intricate, their carved patterns weaving stories of struggle and resilience. Her paintings glowed with an otherworldly vibrancy, each stroke infused with emotion. But beneath the excitement, tension simmered. The knowledge of the impending threat hung over them like a shadow. Alex installed extra locks on the studio door, his movements brisk and purposeful. Lyris noticed the way his gaze lingered on the windows, the way his shoulders stiffened at every unexpected noise. "You are afraid," she said unevening, her voice quiet. "Damn right I am," Alex replied. "These people, they don't just want to shut you down. They want to erase you." "And yet we continue." Luz said, her glow brightened slightly, illuminating the room. "Because fear cannot stop truth." Alex stared at her for a moment, then nodded. "Yeah, we keep going." The night of the exhibition arrived with a mixture of anticipation and unease. The underground gallery buzzed with energy as visitors crowded the space. Their faces a blend of awe and curiosity. Liu's S-pieces dominated the room their volume instant. Patterns casting shifting lights across the walls as she moved through the crowd. Liu's felt a flicker of something she hadn't experienced in years. Pride. People stopped to admire her work, their murmur of admiration washing over her like a tidefall. The first time she felt seen not as an outcast, but as an artist. But not everyone shared that sentiment. A small group lingered near the entrance, their sharp whispers cutting through the hum of conversation. Man is facing hard and lined with disdain. Stepped forward, his voice carried across the room, silencing the crowd. This doesn't belong here, he said, pointing at one of Al's sculptures. This isn't art. It's amicry. Lyris turned to face him, her glow steady and unwavering. And who decides what is art? He sneered. People like me, people who understand culture. Not some alien freak trying to play human. A murmur rippled through the crowd, half outrage, half unease. Alex stepped forward, his fists clenched, but Liz raised a hand, stopping him. My work reflects my truth, she said, her voice calm but firm. If you cannot see its value, that is your blindness, not my failure. The man opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, Detective Rowan appeared at the edge of the crowd, her presence cutting through the tension. That's enough, she said, her tone sharp. You've made your point now. Leave. The man hesitated, his gaze flicking between Rowan and Liu's before finally turning and walking away. The room exhaled as the tension dissipated. As the night wore on, the exhibition continued without further incident. Liu's found herself surrounded by supporters, their words of encouragement BOing her spirit. But even as she smiled and thanked them, she couldn't shake the feeling that the storm was far from over. Back at their studio, Alex slumped into a chair, his energy drained. While that was something, Liu sat across from him, her glow faint but steady. It is only the beginning. He looked at her, a tired smile playing Arthur's lips. You really don't back down, do you know? She said simply, because my light will not be extinguished. As they sat in the quiet of the studio, surrounded by the fruits of their labor, Lyris felt a quiet resolve settle over her. The path ahead would not be easy, but she would face it with the same determination that had brought her this far. Together they would carve their place in the world, no matter what shadows tried to snuff out their light. High in city awoke to whispers of rebellion. Yes, exhibition had sparked a fire that could not be extinguished, her art glowing with raw emotion, and defiance had captured hearts and provoked fury in equal measure. The lines between admiration and resistance blurred, turning her work into a symbol of both hope and controversy. But Lyris had no time to dwell on the city's fractured opinions. She knew her light had drawn more than attention, it had drawn enemies inside the studio. The air felt heavy with anticipation. Alex moved through the cluttered space with deliberate urgency, hacking locks and securing windows. Lyra stood by the table, her glowing hands tracing the edges of her crystal shard. Its grooves shimmered, faintly reflecting her steady resolve. They'll come for you, Alex said, breaking the silence. His voice was tight, edged with frustration. Not just the protesters or the bureau. People in power don't like symbols they can't control. Liu's looked up, her violet eyes calm but unyielding. Then we must make them that symbols can also be shields. Alex threw his hands up. You can't fight an entire system with art, perhaps. Not, Lyra said, her glow intensifying, but I can show them that their darkness will not consume us. That evening, the city erupted in chaos. Word spread that the Bureau had issued an order to seize lists under the pretext of maintaining interspaces. Harmony drones buzzed through the streets, their searchlights cutting through the dark ideologies. Protesters clashed with officers in front of government buildings, their cries echoing through the night inside the studio. Liz and Alex prepared for what felt like an inevitable confrontation. Alex worked quickly, hiding smaller sculptures and encrypting digital files of Lusk's work. If they raid this place, we can't let them destroy everything, he said, his voice low but urgent. Lyra stepped beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. You have already done so much, but this is my fight now. He turned to her, his amber eyes blazing. No, we're in this together. I'm not letting them take you out for, she could respond. A sharp knock rattled the studio door. Both of them froze. Alex moved to the window, peering through the blinds. "It's Rowan." He whispered. He opened the door, just enough to let the detective inside. She slippered through. Her face etched with tension. "They closing in, Rowan," said. Her voice clipped. "You've got maybe an hour before Bureau storms this place. Then why are you here?" Alex asked, narrowing high sighs. "Because I'm not with them," Rowan snapped. "Not anymore." Lyra stepped forward, her glow casting faint patterns on the walls. "Why do you risk this?" Rowan hesitated, then sighed. "Because I'm tired of being their tool. They use fear to keep control, but fear isn't strength, it's cowardice, and I'm done being a coward." Alex crossed his arms. "So what's the plan?" Rowan pulled a small device from her pocket, its surface gleaming with blue light. "This is a signal jammer. It'll lock their communications for a short time, maybe enough to buy you an escape." His glow brightened. "Escape is not the answer." Rowan raised an eyebrow. "Then what is standing?" Lust said simply. "If I run, they will paint me as a fugitive. If I stay, they must face me as am." Alex groaned. "You're stubborn. You know that she's right." Rowan said, surprising them both. "The only way to end this is to expose them for what they are. But if you're staying, you'll need more Ethan art to defend yourself with." Rowan's help, they fortified the studio. The signal jammer was activated, its faint hum blending with the sounds of the city outside. Lyris positioned her largest sculptures near the windows, their glowing patterns forming a radiant barrier against the encroaching dark. Alex rigged the lights to amplify her bioluminescence, turning the studio into a beacon that pulsed with life as the first wave of Bureau officers approached. Her drone hovering overhead. Vera stepped onto the balcony. Her glow blazed brighter than ever, illuminating the street below. The officers paused, their weapons trained on her. "I am Liu's officer in prime," she called out, her voice steady and clear. "I am not your enemy, but I will not submit to your fear." The crowd that had gathered below erupted into murmurs. Some cheered, others watched in stunned silence. The officers hesitate, their formation breaking as uncertainty rippled through their ranks from the shadows. Kalen emerged, his face a mask off. "Called determination. Stand down." He barked at his men. He looked up at Luz, his eyes narrowing. "You've caused enough trouble." "I have only created," Lyris replied. "If creation is trouble, then your peace is built on lies." Colin sneered. "Your light won't save you." "Perhaps not," she said. "But it will show them who you truly are." What happened next was both unexpected and transformative. As Colin raised his hand to signal the attack, the crowd surged forward. Protesters, drawn by Liu's unwavering stance, formed a human barrier between the Bureau and the studio. They held their ground, their voices rising in a chant that echoed through the city. Rowan stepped beside, used her hand resting lightly on her weapon. "You've got 'em watching." "Now what now? We shine." Lyra said, lifted her arms, her bioluminescence flaring into a kaleidoscope of light. The patterns danced across the buildings, weaving stories of hope and resistance. The crowd gasped, they awe transforming into resolve. Even some of the officers slowed their weapons, their expressions softening as the light touched them. Colin's sneer faltered, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. "This changes nothing," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "It changes everything." Lias replied. By dawn, the Bureau had retreated, their forces scattered by the sheer strength of unity they had faced. That protesters remained, their spirits unbroken. News of the standoff spread across High, turning Liu's into a symbol of resistance and resilience inside the studio. Alex slumped against the wall, his exhaustion tempered by a small triumphant smile. "You did it," he said. "We did it." Liu's corrected, a glow soft but steady. Rowan nodded, her expression thoughtful. "This isn't over, but you've started something they can't ignore." Lyris looked out the window, the city bathed in the soft glow of morning. For the first time, she felt not just like an artist, but a catalyst for change. Her light, once dismissed as a flaw, had become her greatest strength, and she would never let it fade.